The difference a year can make. In 2020, people cautiously left their homes to observe Memorial Day outside. But this year, the weekend is expected to be the busiest travel time since December 2019. Meanwhile, almost all COVID restrictions end tonight following a new executive order from Governor Brian Kemp. But there are a few statewide restrictions that remain in place.
But it's a vast difference from where the state was a year ago today. Hope Ford joins us live to explain why. Hope?
Yeah, well, in May of 2020, cases were spiking just a few weeks after the statewide shelter-in-place ended. Now, COVID cases and hospitalizations are down, highlighting the 360 the state has done in 365 days.
If we have large crowds that are out of control, we will take much stronger action than that.
That was 3 days before Memorial Day in 2020. Governor Kemp had just signed an order increasing the number of gatherings allowed from 10 to 25. Bars and nightclubs were just given permission to reopen. Restaurants could increase capacity slightly, and amateur sports as well as summer classes could return. Now, on Memorial Day 2021, about 1/3 of the state is vaccinated, although Georgia is still in the bottom for vaccinations in the country, worrying some health officials.
As more and more mutations develop, they eventually have the possibility of overcoming those people or those communities that have been immunized.
Still, Kemp moved to lift all COVID restrictions in the state. The only places with a few restrictions remaining are nursing homes, long-term care facilities, and schools. And on Kemp wanting to end mask mandates in schools,
I think the time for mandates is over.
the language in his new order doesn't outright ban masks in schools. Instead, it says school districts can't rely on the state of emergency to require face coverings, meaning school districts could still implement masks. They just can't say the government required them to do so.
And Kemp's stance in a press release is that Georgia is doing well enough to end all government mandates. Of course, local businesses and organizations are free to do what they want as far as restrictions in their place of business. Now, health experts do continue to worry about variants and continue to urge people to get a COVID shot. Ron?
Absolutely. We have to keep our eye on that one, Hope. Thanks a lot.